To make a short contribution to the Economic Development and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2024, the report number 4 of the 57th Parliament of the Cost of Living and Economics Committee. Congratulations to the Minister finally getting around to doing something just a few months out from the election to actually do something about something that could have been done 10 years ago. Let's remember the last 10 years. Let's remember what happened over that 10-year period. Let's remember the Logan Renewal Initiative that was cancelled by this government a decade ago. And so today we find ourselves in this position of a lack of housing. No one saw COVID-19 coming. No one saw the epidemic coming. No one saw any of that occurring. But what we did see coming, because the stats are there, was the population moving into southeast Queensland in particular, and indeed into the northern Gold Coast as well. I asked the library, the Queensland Parliamentary Library, to do some stats for me, some figures for me, based on what the projections were a decade ago, what the projections were 5 years ago, and what they are today. And they are literally identical. We saw this coming more than a decade ago. In fact, they went back as far as 2011. We knew we were going to have this issue. We knew we needed this housing. And those opposite cancelled the Logan Renewal Initiative, which was the starting point, the one that we intended to use as a practice, if you like, to establish whether or not it was going to work, and indeed other states of Australia have taken that initiative on and have rolled it out successfully, but it was cancelled by this government. But no surprise there, because this government is all about going slow. This government is all about coming out of the blocks very, very slowly, and the examples there, classic examples indeed. Indeed, on the northern Gold Coast, 2017, we were promised the Pimpama train station. We're not getting the Pimpama train station before 2025 at the earliest. So it's taken 8 years. That train station was estimated 2 years ago to cost $40 million. It's in the Q-Trip figures, $40 million. That train station is now going to cost $170 million because of the slowness out of the blocks by this Labor government, by the Palaszczuk government before this government, and by this government. It was them that also took years to come out and do something about Exit 49. I'm bringing these up because they're all part of the issue that we have. We have a lack of infrastructure development on the northern Gold Coast, and that's my patch, and that's where I'm going to focus my attention. Exit 49. The money was in the budget in the federal budget in May 2019. We are not going to see that exit completed before, at the very earliest, at the end of this year, 2024. 5 years to build an overpass. It'll probably be more like 2025 by the time it's completed. Once again, because this government is slow out of the blocks. They say that this came out of the Housing Summit in October 2022, 21 months ago. So here we are, it's 21 months down the road. We're halfway through in October 2022, halfway through the term, the 4-year term, and here we are now, 21 months later, 4 months before the next election, that they finally get around to doing something, finally get around to pulling together Economic Development Queensland and making the changes needed for EDQ to deliver more housing supply across the state. So even then, cancelling things 10 years ago, 21 months ago, they had this housing summit, and they were only just now starting to realise that they better look like they are doing something about this. They've failed to plan. They have failed to plan, and they plan to fail in that regard, and they certainly plan to fail on the Northern Gold Coast, because when we talk about the explosion on the Northern Gold Coast of development, the explosion in the fastest growing region in Queensland based on Pimpama, we see 53,500 electors, 35% over quota. We see over 100,000 residents on the Northern Gold Coast, and they knew it was coming. From way back then, way back 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, they knew it was coming, but they failed to plan. But they failed to plan in delivering the infrastructure as well. And I'll take on board what my colleague, the member for Mermaid Beach, raised. And he often raises the idea of using the Canelands as a place to build more residential development and so forth. And I've got to tell you that there are a lot of people on the Northern Gold Coast would say, yes, that's a great idea. But they would also say, not before you provide the infrastructure, not before you provide the additional road infrastructure, not before you provide the east-west connectivity over the M1 and upgrade the roads getting to the M1 and, God forbid, build the second M1, the Coomera connector. Nothing planned north of Shipper Drive for the Coomera connector to be able to deliver any construction, any housing considerations in the Canelands, in and around the Canelands, until that Coomera connector is built. And the previous minister is on record on ABC radio saying that that section of the second M1 is 10 to 15 years away.
Member
typical
for
again.
Coomera, I would ask you to remain relevant to the bill under debate at the moment, the Economic Development and Other Legislation Amendment Bill. You have the call.
Thank you for your guidance there, Mr Deputy Speaker. Just finishing off on that, before we could provide any additional housing on the Northern Gold Coast, and that's what this is all about, we have to provide the infrastructure, and that's where this government has failed. So they failed the people of Queensland, they failed the people of the Northern Gold Coast, they failed the people of Logan City when they cancelled the Logan Renewal Initiative a decade ago. They failed us. They've continued to fail us over these years, and here we are, 4 months from an election. The people of Queensland aren't fooled. They know what this is all about. They know that this is all about them looking like they're doing something. And here we have had the Treasurer today begging the people of Queensland to forget about the last 10 years. They won't forget about the last 10 years, and the opportunity is there for the people of Queensland on the 26th of October 2024 to show Labor the door.
Thank you, Member for Coomera. Is there a member seeking the call?